It's time for Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group with financial advisors Kevin Korhorn, Mike Bernard, and Josh Gregory.
Welcome to another episode of Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group, where every week we're helping you take your next wise step in your financial life. Thanks for being with us. My name is Mike Bernard. I am your host, also one of the certified financial planners on the show. With me in the KFG studios, my business partners and fellow CFPs, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory.
Yeah, barely made the mainstream news, but the Secure Act that was signed into law in late December includes significant changes on how you should approach your financial planning and your financial decisions. We're sharing the highlights of the new law and how you should change your approach coming up this hour on Wise Money.
That's right. The Secure Act, it is going to impact you. And so we're not going to get real deep into the weeds today, but we're going to be talking about it so that you're aware. And then as more clarity is added to how exactly this will be interpreted, we'll be sharing more. But we're going to hit the highlights today. If you have a question for the show, and no doubt you will, or you might have some specific questions about your situation, reach out to us. We'd love to help. You can find us online, wisemoneyshow.com, or you can call or text 574-222-2000. That's 574-222-2000. If you have needs and questions about your own situation, hey, how does this impact me? You can find us there. Or if you have a question for the show, you can find us there as well, all over social media. Just search The Wise Money Show wherever you're at. We're there too. You can submit questions that way as well. All right, so I like how you said that, Kevin, because the Secure Act is going to impact your financial life. It is. I know that it will because there are that many obscure changes. It's not as big as the tax law changes signed into law a couple of years ago, but it's big. However, it's barely hit mainstream media.
Yeah.
I mean, they're barely talking about it.
They snuck it in there, didn't they?
So, and if you really get into the weeds, it was thought that this thing was dead and it wasn't going to go anywhere. And
Passed
then it was
the House a while ago
in the summer.
Yep.
And then they thought it was dead. And then on like the 17th of December, it was attached to a spending bill and was approved. So Senate approved it on the 19th of December. President signed it on the 20th. All the changes, for the most part, take effect 1/1 of 2020, but because it's our tax laws, there's exceptions to exceptions to exceptions. And one other thing, so it's called the Secure Act, but everything's an acronym. So setting every community up for retirement enhancement, which I think is a crock. I think is what they call that. They call that a crock. Not sure it really accomplished that, but nevertheless, it's the law. So what does it do, and how does it impact you? We're going to talk about the top 7 changes that are in the Secure Act and how they're going to impact your financial plan. The first bundle all center around required minimum distribution, or RMD. So, Josh, what's that first change with RMD?
Well, hallelujah. They changed the age that you have to begin drawing money out of your IRAs and your 401ks at work. If you're work at a nonprofit, your 403b. All these retirement accounts, we've always said that at age 70 and a half, or the year that you turn 70 and a half, you have to begin drawing out of those accounts because they've gone all these years without being taxed. The government wants to tax you. Now they've bumped the age to 72, a nice round number for a change.
I know. I kind of enjoy complaining about 70 and a half. I suppose I can still complain about 59 and a half.
I thought for sure they'd fix that one too. Why not just bump it to 60? Good grief.
So 70 and a half is no longer the age at which you need to start pulling money out of your pre-tax retirement accounts. It's actually 72. But it's for those of you that are not yet 70 and a half as of 12/31 of 19. So my father, for example, turned 70 and a half just a couple days into 2020. So he was going to be forced to draw money out in 2020, and now he gets to delay that until the year he turns 72, so it'll be next year instead of this year.
That's who this matters to, right? Those who maybe have enough income coming in from Social Security and pension income, maybe you have some rental income, that sort of thing, and you've always thought of your IRAs or your retirement accounts as sort of extra money that you'll use in the later years of retirement if necessary. Yep. And maybe it's money that you'll leave behind to the next generation. But many people really don't want to have to draw the money out. They don't want to get taxed on it. They don't want to be forced to spend it. They don't want to take it out of productive investments. And so now, folks like your dad just got another year and a half of reprieve.
And the thing that I would want people to understand when people think about the RMD, the required minimum distribution, that is something that has been very confusing, at least in my experience as I've talked with folks, because I've had lots of folks that have said, oh, so when I hit 70 and a half, I have to take out all my retirement money. And no, the answer is you don't, but I can see how you could easily conclude that, because our system of rules and exceptions is so complicated and convoluted. If you didn't spend your lifetime studying this stuff, it wouldn't make any sense. And that's what we get to do for a living, is sit across the table from reasonably intelligent folks and explain stuff that doesn't make any sense to them.
So that's really so the 70.5 rule for starting that required minimum distribution, that's gone. That's changed now to age 72, except for a few exceptions. So you think, well, that's good, but the second big change is coupled with that, and I would argue is not so good, and that is your required minimum distribution when you're inheriting a retirement account.
Yeah, this is a big deal because, for my entire career, I've always explained that if you leave behind an IRA or a Roth IRA to your loved ones, there's a very good chance, if they play their cards right and if they have a forward-looking approach to their finances, they could spread that money out over their entire lifetime. Mm-hmm. So not only was it tax sheltered and protected during your working career and your retirement, but now it could be stretched out over their whole lifetime, and they pull out a bite-sized amount each year over many, many years, decades even.
A required minimum distribution stretched out over their entire life. So they could take out as much as they want, but they had to take out just a little bit, and it was just a little bit because it was stretched out over their lifetime. Well, that's changed in the new law for non-spouse beneficiaries. So if you leave your retirement account to your spouse, it's still same old rules. You don't need to. It doesn't force them to start drawing it out. They could elect to.
Yeah, and there are actually 4 groups as long as you're going to say spouse, disabled, chronically ill, and individuals who are not more than 10 years younger than the decedent.
Yep. For everyone else, you now have to withdraw all the money within 10 years. So this stretch IRA idea that Josh was explaining, that's for the most part gone, and it's now a 10-year rule. Now, that's bad news, I would say. The little bit of flexibility they gave you, though, is you don't have to take out a little bit every year over those 10 years. You can decide how much you want to take out, but the account needs to be empty within 10 years.
That's awesome. Yep.
All right. The third big change within the Secure Act also ties to required minimum distribution, and this one is extremely confusing. We're going to devote an entire show to this, simply because the qualified charitable donation is such a big tax planning strategy. But they kept a little bit the same. They made a couple changes. By and large, here's the confusing thing. So we told you that one of the big changes, they moved the required minimum distribution age from 70.5 to 72. Well, if you wanted to take money out of your IRA and donate it directly to a charity, you were allowed to do so in a tax-advantaged way once you turned age 70.5, and you could use your required minimum distribution to do it. So, great idea. Well, when they moved the required minimum distribution age from 70.5 to 72, does that mean this qualified charitable donation is now moved to 72? No. So the good news is you can still do you can donate money directly from your IRA to a charity directly and have it be tax-advantaged. As soon as you turn 70.5, you just need to watch out for any post-70.5 IRA contributions.
It also means you can still complain, Mike, about okay, age 70.5. It's still intact.
Oh, thank you. What were you going to say, Kevin?
No, I think what you should know is if you are 70.5 and you have retirement money, and that money is, and you do any kind of charitable gifting at all, that money needs to go directly from your IRA to the charity Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Make that happen.
That's right. And so that's the third change or thing you need to be aware of with the Secure Act. And that ties nicely into the fourth change, which we're going to hit in a second, because this qualified charitable donation strategy now has a caveat with this next change that we're going to talk about. So that and more coming up here on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. All right, welcome, YouTube. This is the Wise Money Show. You're at the Wise Money Show channel. What you're watching right now is a radio show that airs locally in our area, the South Bend area, for an hour every Saturday morning. And we record everything, including the breaks here, and post it on the YouTube channel. Also on this YouTube channel will be different vlogs about every other week that we post about different financial concepts, all centered around helping you take your next wise step. So if that sounds good to you and you're not already a subscriber, I'd encourage you to subscribe to this channel, turn on that bell for notifications, leave comments below. Any comments, any questions that you have, we will get back to you. And I mean any. No heckling, though, but any question, we'll get back to you. Thumbs up, thumbs down, and share it with folks that need to hear the news as well. So thank you. Okay, hard to talk about that qualified donation charitable donation change without also talking about this IRA age limit. But we're not going to get into all those weeds. We can't. It's just too confusing.
Because of the way that they limit each other, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Maybe
So
just mention
honorable
that
mention.
There's a minefield here, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right.
You know, we complain every time they come out with new tax laws like this that it just adds more and more and more complexity. It doesn't really clarify things. It just adds more exceptions, new opportunities, and it changes the planning.
Yep.
Which some of these are positive changes and some are negative, but you know, a lot of these, it just adds another layer of complexity, unfortunately.
You know, what we didn't talk about, so this bonus content on YouTube is, you know, that stretch IRA idea. We're going to probably do a full show about this, but if you've got minor kids, you've often thought, well, if I pass away early, I don't want to leave all this money to this minor child, and the guardian would have a lot of discretion or control, I guess, over how to use it. So I'll add the contingent beneficiary to be my see-through trust. And under the new tax law, they're looking and saying see-through trusts do not really work with retirement accounts, because they set it up where for required distributions, you can send a required distribution directly through the trust to the end beneficiary. Well, with the 10-year rule, the only required distribution is on the 10th year. So it sort of blows up that strategy. If you then change and make your contingent beneficiary your kids instead of this trust, if your kids inherit it younger than the age of majority, so when they're still minors, then they get to pull an RMD based on their life expectancy until they reach the age of majority.
Because the old rules still apply.
For a minor.
So what I wondered, and I haven't read this, maybe you have, when they reach the age of majority, do they now have 10 years?
Yes, that's my understanding.
So if you wrote your trust right, you could still take advantage of that 10-year period, right?
Possibly.
If you don't want your kids to have the money too early.
But here's the thing. What I saw is, even though the language at the surface shows that these trusts now it's not a good strategy. I mean, this is what I have. I've got 3 minor kids, so the contingent beneficiary is that trust. They're looking for some clarity from, it wouldn't be Congress, be from the IRS as to whether they'll allow an exception for these trusts. Because it creates a big problem when you're passing money. And I think that's an unintended consequence. I don't think the IRS is wanting to penalize parents who are trying to be careful about giving their kids too much money too early.
Yeah.
I don't think that's
a lot
what
of those trusts were really complicated and had to be written just right. Otherwise, it was a 5-year period in the past. So who knows? I mean, if you play your cards right, maybe this can be an enhancement.
Maybe. If it's written
Yeah,
correctly.
you got to have a good estate planning attorney to work with there.
I think as I've read it, and again, we'll find out. It seems like the conduit and discretionary trust both are going to go out the window.
I think so. All right, that was a little longer break than intended. Hopefully that was helpful there on YouTube, us talking about how confusing this is. All right, let's get into the fourth big change. What is the Secure Act and how will it impact you? It's not if it will impact you, it's how it will impact you. That's what we're talking about today. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being with us. My name's Mike Bernard. Here with me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Thank you to the attorneys at South Bank Legal. In fact, some of what we're talking about is estate planning and connects with legal stuff, and we are very familiar with the folks over at South Bank Legal. I'd encourage you to check them out for any of your legal needs, estate planning needs. And then also thanks to First State Bank for sponsoring the content of today's show. To stay up to date on all Wise Money content, you'll find us online, wisemoneyshow.com. And then wherever you're at on social media, we are there too. Just search the Wise Money Show. Make sure you follow us there to stay up to date. All right, so we're talking about the 7 big changes that will impact you in your financial plan, your financial life from the Secure Act. The fourth big change within the Secure Act is they've made a change with the age limit on IRA contributions. So what was it and what's the new law?
Yeah, many may not realize that there ever was an age limit because you may think, well, boy, when I get to retirement age, I'm done working, so I'm done saving into an IRA. Who cares if there's a cap on the age? Well, it's been 70 and a half, and it has impacted some folks who get out there and they're maybe working part-time during retirement. And if for tax planning purposes you want to fund an IRA, unfortunately in the past at age 70 and a half, you were capped. You no longer were allowed to.
You could fund a simple IRA. You could fund a 401k. You could fund a Roth. It was just for some reason there was this age discrimination. I'm going to throw it out there because we're all
Always
being
the
oppressed.
victim, right?
We are all oppressed with this IRA contribution. And some of the spirit of this law, some of the changes were around, well, we've got an aging workforce and more people are going to be working into their 70s. Therefore, let's push RMD back a little bit and let's remove this age limit on funding an IRA. I like that. I mean, it makes it a little simpler because it's now in line with Roths and 401ks, but no more age limit. The limit, though, that still applies is earned income.
That's right. You have to have paycheck money, in other words, or some sort of side job that you're earning, self-employed income, but it's got to be like wage-type income. Interest that you earn on your bank accounts doesn't count, for example.
Social Security does not count.
Your pension doesn't count.
That's right.
Capital gains do not count.
Yeah.
So you have to have think W-2. Now, it could be self-employed income, but just think W-2. And, it's interesting because this show is kind of billed as, hey, everyone needs to be listening in, and this applies to you. You might say, wait a minute, I'm nowhere near 70, and when I'm 70, I don't plan on working. Well, you might know someone who's in their 70s who might have extra cash or cash flow, and so they might want to put money into a traditional deductible IRA.
Mm-hmm.
There's one more little obscure piece of this law. It doesn't qualify as one of our top 7 or anything, but I'm going to tuck it in because we're talking about earned income. Some of our listeners may have a son or a daughter who's in graduate school and maybe earning some sort of a stipend or some sort of a fellowship. And in the past, that was not treated as earned income. It wasn't considered paycheck money for the purposes of funding an IRA or Roth IRA. Now it will be. And I don't know who this will apply to because, most people who are starving their way through medical school or something like that, do they really have the money to be funding something like a Roth IRA? I don't know. Maybe it's gifted money. Maybe it's money they received from an inheritance or something. I don't know how this will apply, but it's something you want to have on your radar screen, or at least your certified financial planner needs to.
That's right. One other just honorable mention here, and we'll probably have it in a full show in the future, but that qualified charitable donation we talked about earlier, just know that there is an offset within the new plan for any IRA contributions that you make after age 70 and a half. You've got to factor that in and offset that with your qualified charitable donation. So very confusing. We're not going to get into all the laws. Just know that needs to be handled with care, and there's a rule that makes sure that there isn't abuse of that law come that age. So, all right, the fifth big change within the Secure Act, and here in Indiana, this could be a really big deal that might force other legislative changes, and that is that you can now use up to $10,000 from your 529 plan to pay off student loans. Now, just before, I can see Josh is waiting to make a comment here, but I actually like this one. I get this question a lot. The 529 plan was for college, and then they changed it and made it for a whole bunch of other things. But, well, can I use it to pay off someone's student loans or help pay down someone's student loans? I always hated that answer was no.
Yeah.
And now they've said, well, no, the answer is yes, up to $10,000 a year.
Well, it takes away some of the risk of you getting too much money stranded in a 529 plan, where you're going to have to pull it out and maybe pay some taxes and potentially even some penalties on the growth in the account because maybe you were overfunded, which would be wonderful. Circumstances like that, they're less likely to have student loans, I would think. But this is an interesting one because what I wonder is, does it make it so that now you want to be funding the 529 plan even beyond the college years? And here in Indiana, we've always said that when you contribute to a 529 plan in this state, you're qualifying for an amazing tax credit. You hear us talk about it all the time. We love it. And is this maybe now an excuse to overfund or to keep on contributing to these accounts? Maybe your son or daughter starts funding their own 529 plan so that when they start making their college loan payments, they're doing it at least with some money that's already saved a tax credit.
And this actually might make the case if you're potentially overfunded. And if you're listening to this and say, how in the world could you be overfunded for college? It's possible.
Yep,
I mean, you could be saving money for your three kids you're as long as they've been born, and one of them could go in the military and another one could go on an ROTC scholarship, and the next thing you know, you're like, what are we going to do with this with this money? So, but what you could do is you could get loans on purpose, educational loans, and pay them off. When I was in the National Guard, I had $20,000 of student loan repayment, and this was 3972. It was a long time ago, but that's when they didn't have great loan programs. But I got every penny of loan that I could because the National Guard paid it off for me.
Yeah, you just got to be careful listening to that. Don't turn the channel, right? As you said, take every amount of loan as you can. But it does.
No, what it does is it makes the case that you have to have a strategy.
Correct.
You have to have a plan. And you say, well, does this apply to me or not? Well, I don't know. Do you like putting $5,000 in, getting a $1,000 credit, and paying off your student loan or your kid's student loan? Be careful. I mean, Josh, for every gimme, there's a gotcha. Josh is saying, hey, have your kids put the money in. Well, they can only deduct, they can only get the credit for what they owe for the state part of their taxes.
Here's where my mind was going, though. This is after they've graduated, they're working full-time.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah.
And it's time to start making payments. Why not funnel it through the 529 plan in Indiana?
Absolutely.
On its way to the loan?
My prediction is Indiana's going to change their laws.
They're going to have to.
Right now, Michigan offers a deduction, not a credit, on your 529 contributions, but they net all ins and outs for the entire year. It's your net contribution that you get a deduction for. So you put 10 in, you take 10 out, you don't get any tax benefit for that. In Indiana,
shake it all about?
You do.
It depends.
So
We've always said this is a tax loophole in Indiana, and we've wondered for years, when are they going to close this thing? Well, it just so happens that this federal law just made the loophole even bigger.
yeah, and it's possible that wakes them up and they end up making a change. But Kevin's right. You need to have a strategy. And for a lot of folks, the idea of having overfunded college doesn't really resonate. I think for more of you, it could say, well, I've been willing to help with $5,000 a year, and then the student pays for some, and the student gets loans. Well, now you can still use the 529 after they've graduated to help pay some of those loans. All right, we still haven't touched the real purpose of the Secure Act, so lots of changes embedded in there that we're going to hit. And then great questions from fans of the show, that and more coming up here on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. So here's the deal. For a lot of folks, it's, mom and dad, we're going to do as much as we can. Hopefully that's $5,000 a year because of, in Indiana, the tax credit. But ultimately, that means there's still going to be some extra money. That's not going to cover all of school. So the student's going to need to work, and likely the student's going to need to have a little bit of loan. And what we're talking about here, at least in Indiana, is that for those scenarios, and I think that's probably the majority of people, that while you're paying on those loans, you probably should consider funneling the money into the 529 plan and then using the money from the 529 to pay off or pay down the loan. So work with your certified financial planner, though. Craft a strategy that's specific for you, and take advantage of these new rules until before they potentially change.
That's the tricky thing. These sweeping changes come through, and then there's all these tweaks and changes that come behind, and sometimes it blows up that strategy you thought was going to be so awesome.
Yep. All right, third segment. Last break was a longer one, so we'll keep this one short. So we're going to start with the penalty-free withdrawal from retirement account for a child or adopting a child, and then we'll get into the retirement plan changes. So hopefully we're done talking about this at the end of this segment. I doubt it, though. We'll see. How does the new Secure Act impact you? We're talking about that right now. We've got our top 7 ways that the Secure Act will change your financial plan. We're through the first 5, numbers 6 and 7 coming up. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being with us. My name's Mike Bernard. Here with me in the KF2 studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Thank you to Bethel University Adult and Graduate Studies, as well as Diane Bennett and the Inspired Homes team for making the Wise Money Show possible. Speaking of, the Wise Money Show is on the Wise Money Show channel on YouTube. If you're not already a subscriber, I'd encourage you to check us out there, subscribe to it, and turn that notification on so that you're notified every time we have a new episode of the Wise Money Show, but also vlogs and other informational videos designed to help you take your next wise step in your financial life. So go to YouTube, check out the Wise Money Show there. All right, the 6th big change that's impacting your financial life within the Secure Act is you're now able to take a penalty-free withdrawal from your retirement account for having a child or for adopting a child.
That's right, and there's a limitation on this. It's $5,000 that you can pull out of your IRA and not pay the 10% penalty.
So, really quick, and the Secure Act is really new. The IRS still needs to interpret a lot of things. So we're not trying to get into the weeds. However, in the weeds, I actually heard this was per person, not per tax return. So if you're married,
that's true.
If you're married, you could each take $5,000 because an IRA is for the individual. Mm-hmm. So anyway.
Now, basically what they're doing is they're just adding an additional circumstance where you may be eligible to take a withdrawal from your IRA before you've even reached retirement age. We've always said that until you've reached age 59 and a half, when you pull money out of the IRA, you're going to pay taxes to the federal government, taxes to the state and local government, and then a 10% penalty on top unless certain circumstances exist for you. And it's things like you died and your beneficiaries are pulling money out, or you're disabled. It could be for qualified medical expenses or even health insurance. even things like being a first-time home buyer
Yeah.
or for education expenses. Those have always been there and they still exist. Now there's an additional one or two here with adoption or giving birth to a child.
Now, we each have 3 kids, coincidentally, and so we each could have been impacted had this law been in place. However, let me go back to what the Secure Act stands for.
Yeah.
Setting every community up for retirement enhancement. Within the whole act that's to help you retire, they're allowing you to pull money out of your retirement account for having kids. Doesn't quite make sense to me. I'm not going to argue with it, but doesn't quite make sense.
It doesn't make a bit of sense to me, actually. But so you're being nice. You think about the future value of that $5,000. If instead of pulling it out when you're 30 years old and having a child or adopting, you left that same $5,000 intact to grow for 2 or 3 or 4 more decades.
Right.
Maybe even longer. Maybe that $5,000 was going to be there till you're 80, for all we know. Think about what you're actually pulling up out of the ground. That mighty oak tree out there in the future is a sapling today, and you just yanked it up by the roots.
Yeah, unless you've got an extra sapling, and then yank, baby, yank. So, I mean, this is the thing, because, in the last segment I was talking about how when I was going through college, I took out as many loans as I could. It wasn't very much. I think I ended up getting $6,000 or $8,000 over the course of a 4-year time frame, which was a lot of money back then. Let me tell you. But I mean, if you have your retirement overfunded, taking $5,000 out is win. Because you didn't pay taxes on that money going in, you don't pay taxes on it coming out.
Well, it's
You
penalty.
pay taxes, not penalty, though.
That's what I said.
correct.
So you don't have the 10% penalty.
That's right. It could be a big advantage for you. Now, a couple other things that, again, we're not going to try to get into the weeds, but, so you find out you're pregnant. Can you pull $5,000 out to help with the medical costs? No. You've got a year after the event to pull the money back out. And then what if you pull the money back out and then you win the lottery? I don't know the time stipulations yet. I don't think they've even released it, but you could actually put this money back in to your IRA or your qualified retirement account over and above the annual contribution limit. So you could actually put this money back in. But again, they haven't told us what the time frame is to do it.
Man, can you imagine being an HR manager right now, listening to that?
Okay, speaking of, all right, the whole purpose of the Secure Act, and you could even argue the reason it was passed in the first place was lobbyists around some changes that they wanted to make to 401ks and retirement plans. You could argue that if you're into conspiracy theories, but tons of changes relating to how your 401k might operate at work. I lumped them all into this 7th big change within the Secure Act. And we're not going to get into the weeds, but Kevin, you're very involved with the retirement plan service that we offer here at Korhorn Financial Group. So if you have a small business or you have a 401k, if you're not working with someone to get great advice and get great help, you need to. And we could certainly help you. And you want to make sure that these new laws within the Secure Act, you're benefiting from them. So let's talk about some of the changes embedded here.
Well, one of the things that they've done, and again, so what if we hit we've hit the idea of taking out loans because you can then pull out extra 529 plan money and paying that off. We've talked about taking money out of your retirement plan to fund your adoption, and now we're going to break out the A word and say, hey, you could now have an annuity in your 401k. And so the people who have made a career out of bashing annuities are having heart palpitations at the moment. But the truth is, an annuity, as we've always seen it, an annuity is just a tool.
Right.
So you look at that and you say, well, if I need a hammer or I need a screwdriver, what do I need? What's the tool that I need? And then is it a quality tool? Because I know this, you can buy tools, the cheap tools at Menards are on the bottom shelf right where you can see them. They're easy to reach. The more expensive tools that aren't Menards brand labeled are harder to reach.
Yeah, yeah.
And so this is where there's going to have to be some decisions that get made by the plan administrators. And this is where, to your point, Mike, you definitely want to be working with someone, your plan advisor. If you haven't done a benchmarking in the last couple of years, if you don't have someone advising you, this is going to make it so that you're going to need to, because I do believe with the allowance for multiple employer plans, that's going to expand this. The multiple employer plan is a great concept. I don't know if it will make it beyond a great concept. But basically, the idea is that if I have a plan, if the three of us all had separate companies and we all wanted a plan, I could have a plan, Josh could bolt onto that plan, Mike could bolt onto that plan, and there are some cost savings that we would realize by the three of us participating in one plan. So in theory, the expenses of one plan would be shared by the three of us, making it a much better deal. So the
Secure Act came in, and with those two things that you mentioned, Kevin, it basically loosened up some of the liability for 401ks to offer annuities within their 401k, and we're thinking that will lead to more 401ks being annuities or having annuities within them. And then the law also didn't go as far as what many people were hoping, but also encouraged companies to use multiple employer plans, would provide some scale there.
Or even just incentives to set up their own plan even, right?
Yep.
The one that may have an impact on you personally is your 401k may have an automatic enrollment feature built into it, which means when you're eligible, you're in. And they're going to start pulling money out of your paycheck, whether you ask them to or not. In fact, you've got to ask them not to if for some reason you think you shouldn't be. But also, another feature is an automatic escalation or an increase to that contribution every single year. It used to just keep going up 1% per year until you hit 10. Now it's 15.
And we're going to pick right back up on that as well and wrap up these changes with the Secure Act. So that and more coming up here on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Yeah. So hopefully we talk about it on the air. So we'll pick that one back up. But it was one of the times when you were out, Kevin and I did a show about an article, some research that was done. And apparently, average 401k contribution before auto enrollments was here. Now auto enrollments start. Average 401k contribution was here.
Really?
Yeah.
I
want to look at that research again to see if it was biased or to see if it's changed or whatever. It's been a few years ago. I know.
That is the dilemma with all of these things. Like, these are all great ideas, but you talk to an HR person that's had the auto enrollment nightmare.
Oh yeah,
and
it's a nightmare.
So it doesn't have to be a nightmare, but if it's not set up correctly, it very easily could be a nightmare.
So Josh, the thinking, and it's a whole show, counterfeit solutions to real problems. So there's a problem with retirement readiness. So we'll just auto-enroll people. Well, what's the problem with auto-enrolling someone at 5%?
It may make them believe that 5% is enough.
Right. They need to be doing 10 or 15.
Yeah.
Right? And so for people that might otherwise start at 10, they're basically, well, you auto-enroll at 5. Okay, I guess I'll do that.
Yeah, but so you're saying that the problem is if you auto-enroll me at 5%, I'm assuming I'm good? Well, the other assumption I'm making is if you picked the amount that's going in, you also picked the investment, which you did. It's called the QDIA. Qualified Default Investment Alternative.
Yeah.
And so is that the right fund for me? Like I said, one of the biggest financial decisions we're going to make in our lifetime is the allocation of our investment portfolio.
Yeah.
So I can almost assure you that the QDIA is not what I want to have.
All right, so let's pick that back up, the auto-enroll and then the auto escalation, and then maybe the part-time stuff and anything else. And maybe this will take half the segment, and then we'll still be able to get to the question. So this is 4-segment.
What question are we going with?
The 5-year limit, the 5-year rule for the Roth. It shouldn't take long to answer.
Do we have another one in case?
No, my guess is it's all going to.
Wait, did we say this? We're going to the last one?
Yeah.
And we're doing. Okay, I was reading when you said that. What else did you say?
So it'd be nice to hit one question.
Do we have one that you want to hit?
Yeah.
Which one?
5-year rule.
From Tim.
I mean, this one's obscure. It is. So, Lindsay, is this word for word?
Right, that's not a typo.
The Roth 401k. Okay. So there might be a caveat on the comment that I made. So let's connect after the show. There is. And oh my goodness, you'd think this stuff is simple, and it's not.
So what is the answer?
I mean, the Roth 401k has a 5-year rule. Mm-hmm. Like you have to have
Just
your
like
Roth,
the IRA,
right?
Roth IRA.
But if you've never had a Roth IRA and you retire and you move your Roth 401k to your Roth IRA, you have a new 5-year rule.
If you never had a Roth.
If you never had a Roth IRA. The Roth IRA has a 5-year.
Each have their own separate 5-year period.
So,
okay.
So basically, the advice is, if you don't have a Roth IRA at all and you're eligible, find $50 and put it in a Roth IRA right now, just so you meet the 5-year rule and you're done.
Yeah. But if you fund a Roth 401k only the last year, at age 59 and a half or 60 or something, and then you roll it to a Roth IRA that's been open for many years.
Then you're good.
Because it's the account you're pulling out of, not the one you funded into.
Yeah, but it's not even the account. It's the
the
registration.
The type. Right. That's
no. Okay, so did you say, I put money into my Roth 401k for 2 years. I pull it out and put it into my Roth IRA that I've had for 50.
Right, then you're good. There's no you've met the 5-year rule, dude. It is. You can't.
That feels like yet another kind of blunder. They just didn't write it well.
No, they're playing checkers.
Yeah.
So I want to be more wordy in my response, Lindsay.
Okay.
It doesn't negate what I said. I just need to add another comment. So. All right, but let's wrap up the auto enroll, the auto escalate, and then anything else with the 401k or retirement plan changes, and we'll get to that question. So, how does the 5-year rule work with Roth 401ks and Roth IRAs? That was bonus content if you've been watching the YouTube channel. We got a great question from a fan of the show. We're going to hit that coming up. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. My name is Mike Bernard. Here with me in the KF2 studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. If you listen to podcasts, you'll find the Wise Money Show on podcasts. Just wherever you listen, whether that's iTunes or Google Play or wherever, just search the Wise Money Show, subscribe to it, rate the show, leave a comment, and then you can listen to every episode of the Wise Money Show right there at your convenience whenever you'd like. All right, this entire episode we've been talking about the sweeping financial changes within the Secure Act. Not as big of changes as the tax law changes we saw a couple years ago, but still, this thing is massive, and it will impact your financial plan. Not each of these areas will impact, but there's at least one, if not a couple, that will impact your financial life. We've been hitting the top 7 changes from the Secure Act. We're in the middle of the 7th, and that is there's a whole bunch of changes within the Secure Act that relate to your retirement plan at work. Josh, we were leaving off on the auto enrollment and auto escalation. So summarize that change again for us.
Yeah, I was sharing that this may be one that applies to you directly if the 401k or retirement plan at work has an automatic feature that essentially defaults to have you join the plan at a certain milestone, certain number of months or hours worked or whatever. You may automatically be enrolled, and surely your human resource department or the management of your organization would be warning you of that. But also built in, usually, is some sort of an automatic escalation in what your contributions would be. So, for example, when you're automatically enrolled, they might start you at 5%, and every year after increase it by 1%. All the way up to 10% was how the prior rules were structured. Now, they're going to keep on ratcheting it up until you reach 15% or until you stop it yourself. Okay? So it's something to pay attention to. We would argue that, this is theoretically a good thing to be doing anyway. It's something that we encourage our clients to be slowly pushing up until you get to the right level of contributions for your retirement plan to be sustainable and fully funded.
Don't auto enroll. If you are a plan sponsor, which is geek speak for if you run a small business and have a 401k, have the auto enroll feature. There's tax benefits to have it. But you as the participant, you as the employee, don't auto enroll. Sign up yourself and elect the right contribution from the start. Start at 15%. Don't wait and let it auto escalate over the next 10 years to get you there. Sign up yourself and start with the right contribution limit or start with the right contribution amount. And by enrolling yourself, you will be able to pick your own investment instead of getting the QDIA, which is the default option if you auto-enroll. So I guess I'm glad that they're there, but you're listening to a show about wise financial principles. It's not wise to just let stuff automatically happen. Go in and take your next wise step. Enroll yourself, select the right contribution amount, and select the right investment.
I want to say that differently, though.
Okay.
It is wise for things to automatically happen in your financial life if you set them up with intention to automatically happen. That's what we love about the 401k is you make the decision on the right amount to contribute and the right mix of investments, and then it is on autopilot, but it's an autopilot that you designed for yourself instead of one that was just kind of forced on you.
Yeah, because I'd like to say it differently as well.
Nope. Josh already did.
No, but in the retirement plans world, that all of the buzz, all of the talk is about employee outcomes, which that's what retirement plans exist for. But you're right. You could create a solution that isn't going to solve the problem. And I do think, if you just heard Mike say sign up and put 15% in, and that triggered your gag reflex, sign up and put 5% in. That will likely capture whatever company match you're having. But do sign up for the auto escalation and do pay attention to these things, because this is going to likely be the most powerful wealth building tool that you're ever going to have.
Yeah.
And they've extended this powerful wealth building tool now. Even I think of seasonal folks around here. I think of people that might work. I have a good friend that works at Crystal Mountain, and so he's part-time every year. And it used to be the way it used to be was if you have to work 1,000 hours a certain number of years a year or a certain number of years to be eligible. Well, he never had the 1,000 hours. Well, now they've made it so that you have to work 500 hours 3 years in a row. Mm-hmm. And if you do that, now you're eligible. And here's where it's going to trip people up. There are a lot of employers that are going to say, well, listen, Mike's been working the ski lift for 4 years now, but, he's living paycheck to paycheck, so there's no way he's going to want to contribute. Look, if you're not dotting your I's and crossing the T's and making sure that you've offered the plan to Mike and done all the right things, this creates a few more potential
pitfalls.
Yeah, pitfalls, or just some more work for the HR person to do. This is in theory for small businesses. Most small businesses don't have an HR department.
Make sure if you're a small business offering a 401k plan or considering it, make sure you're working with a great advisor. We have a full department that helps your small business with your retirement plan. Okay, setting every community up for retirement enhancement. That's the law. Don't rely on the law. With all these changes, go talk to your certified financial planner to figure out how does this change your strategy? How does this change your approach? Are there any adjustments that you need to make? The only way to apply this to your specific situation is through a comprehensive financial planning relationship, something we call One Plan. Don't rely on the law to tell you that your retirement's secure. Go out and make sure you apply the right stuff to your specific situation and so that you're on track. All right, we've got a great question from a fan of the show that I got to sneak in here. It's from Tim. He left it on the YouTube channel, and basically he says, hey, if you have a Roth 401k, can you withdraw the money at age 59 and a half without any 5-year look back? I'm not talking about a Roth conversion. I'm talking about contribution. And so, Tim, this is a confusing question. We've addressed this on different shows a couple of times, but it's the 5-year rule relating to Roth accounts. Josh, do you want to jump in and take it from here?
The thing you need to understand about Roth IRAs and Roth 401ks is the money that you've contributed to the plan, to a Roth IRA, for example, you can pull out tax-free, penalty-free anytime you want, okay? Because that's the money that you put in. You already paid tax on that money before it went into the plan. But what about the growth? What about the interest and the dividends and everything that's been accumulating during that time? That rule is at age 59 and a half, with the account being open at least 5 years. That's the part that always gets dropped off, that 5-year rule. With that account open 5 years, you can pull the growth out tax-free, penalty-free as well. But what if you didn't start contributing to a Roth 401k, for example, until right before retirement? What if you started at 58 and then you retire and you need to get access to that money? Unfortunately, because the account wasn't open for at least 5 years, you may be in that tax and penalty situation just on the growth piece.
Or you'd have to wait. The thing that I initially replied to Tim right away to the YouTube to this question, and I'm gonna update it because if you have a Roth 401k but you don't have a Roth IRA, and you've been contributing to your Roth 401k all these years, and maybe that's been well beyond the 5-year rule, so you're good. But then you retire, and you move your Roth 401k over into a Roth IRA, but you've never had a Roth IRA before, that starts a new 5-year wait, which is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. So the big action item here is you've got this weird, and I'm just going to say it, ridiculous 5-year rule with having a Roth IRA. So if you're eligible to have one and you don't, just take $50 and put it in a Roth IRA right now, so that because it's not each Roth IRA account needs to be open for 5 years. It's just that you have to have had a Roth IRA, any Roth IRA, for 5 years. Ridiculous. But great question, Tim. That is confusing. We're going to keep talking about it here on the Wise Money Show, but great question. All right. That's all the time we have. I hope today's discussion has helped you with the Secure Act. But on behalf of Josh, Gregory, Kevin Korhorn, myself, and all of us at Korhorn Financial Group, have a great weekend. We'll see you next Saturday for Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group.
Securities offered through Silver Oak Securities, member FINRA/SIPC. Advisory services offered through KFG Wealth Management, LLC. Doing business as Korhorn Financial Group. KFG Wealth Management, LLC and Silver Oak Securities Incorporated companies are unaffiliated.